And here we go. Welcome to Flyers Game Day. Brian Smith, Jason Myrtetus. We're live at the East Food Hall on a date, Brian, that I think a lot of people, including a key member of the opposition, circled on their calendar when the NHL schedule came out and free agency broke and all that. Because today it's the return of Claude Giroux.
Are we playing Ottawa today?
Yeah, it's
no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's a big one. It's and again, from the player perspective, it's a little bit muted just from the standpoint of they saw each other last week, and that was in Ottawa. That's probably good for everybody, I think, for that to happen in Ottawa. First time for him to see the jersey on the other side of the ice, all that sort of thing. But yeah, today it's a bit of a different level. He's back here. He's going to be in front of the fans that he played in front of for his entire career up until this past February. 1,000 games worth of NHL action here, and it's a big deal. It's a big deal for any player, I think, to go back to a place they played, even if they were only there for a year or two. But when you have the longevity that Claude Giroux had here in Philadelphia, I mean, that's going to be a big thing for him. And like anything else, actually, I don't even know. Like I would say, like anything else, it'll be weird for the first few shifts, and then they would settle in normally. But it might not be. It might be weird the entire game for him.
Yeah, and I'm sure it was weird for him just walking in here as a member of the opposition. Matter of fact, when I got done having my breakfast this morning in the press dining room, with scrambled eggs, bacon, potatoes.
Was it chicken and waffles day, or is that tomorrow?
That might be tomorrow.
Tomorrow, I think it's chicken and waffles.
Yeah. And I was walking back towards your office, actually.
Okay.
And I walked to the left out of the press dining room, not to the right. And the Senators players were down there playing soccer and football and getting loose. And it was weird seeing him down.
Yeah. Oh, it's I mean, you come into this building as a visitor on a bus down the ramp.
Yeah.
That's not what you do as a player. You walk in through the loading dock, and you take a right, and you go down through the Zamboni Tunnel, which is a completely different entrance than the Flyers players use. So it is, it's definitely a different scenario. It's going to be weird sitting on. I mean, I imagine I wouldn't be surprised to see him trying to go to the wrong bench. It's a completely different geographical location. The bench is. So it's a different perspective to watch the game. So a lot of things will be different, especially after spending so much time in this arena as a Philadelphia Flyer.
And I'm sure since Claude was traded at the deadline last year after his 1,000th game, I'm sure it's been a pretty dizzying affair. From he's got a family, he's got a wife, 2 kids, and it was off to Florida, and then this off season came, and it's okay. Where are we putting our anchor down? And it's kind of easier for them because they built a house back in Ottawa already. That was the off season home. Now that's the full season home. So that part's a little bit easier, but it's probably been a dizzying affair since. I mean, what was that? March last year?
March
13th,
something like that.
Something?
Yeah, it was right after St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting life.
Everybody's cocktailing today.
Of course, great day for it.
Look at her, cocktailing. I love it.
It's an interesting life being a pro hockey player, and especially being a pro hockey player family, because again, even a guy like Claude, who had been here for going back to 2008, I guess was 809 was the first year with the Phantoms. So wherever that was, where he first started being here all the time, and then eventually getting married and all that. Even when you're living here and going to the same city year after year, living in the same place, you're a lot of times you're going home during the summer.
Yep.
And that is a moving process, especially once you have a couple of kids. So every year in April, May, or June, depending on how the season went, you're packing up and you're driving back to Ottawa. And you spend a couple of years there, a couple of months there, and then you pack up and you come back to Philadelphia. So, I think they're still settling there, but the fact that you're definitely there year round moving forward. But I don't know what will happen for him next year, but
he's under contract.
How long's the contract?
I think he's signed a 3-year deal.
3-year deal. Okay, so they'll settle in. And they won't have to move as much anymore. But I mean, even a player that plays in one place for a long time, they're still doing things during the summer that a lot of us don't have to worry about.
Yeah, he signed a 3-year deal in Ottawa at a $6.5 million cap hit. Good money if you can get it. And so he signed through the 24-25 season, full no-move clause as well. So
yeah, and that means you can't go down to the minors. You can't, none of that without your consent. So, and that, fortunately, even out Senators players that have to go to the minors these days, they don't have to go to Binghamton anymore. They just go to Belleville, which is a bit of an easier thing to swallow.
Yeah, unless you're Zaitsev, who they put through waivers but haven't sent down.
Yeah,
which is kind of an odd situation.
Yeah.
Well, here's the deal too with Ottawa. They've now lost 7 straight games. We saw them a week ago today.
Sounds familiar.
And the Flyers won that game, 2-1.
Yep.
But this Ottawa team is really struggling. And there were some expectations there. They have now not won a game since October 24th when they beat Dallas at home. Since then, they've lost to Minnesota at home, Florida and Tampa on the road, Vegas at home, the Flyers at home a week ago. They lost to Vancouver on Tuesday of this week at home. And then they lost their last game Thursday to the New Jersey Devils in overtime, 4-3. And now they're looking at this win over the Flyers today and their skid. Flyers coming off that loss, of course, against Columbus. 5-2 was the final on Thursday. And the Flyers are looking to bounce back, not lose 2 straight. So Flyers won the prior 2 games, one against Ottawa, 2-1 a week ago. They beat St. Louis 5-1. They lost to Columbus 5-2. But the thing with the Flyers right now, Brian, is all those games I just mentioned, they have looked better from a process standpoint than at any time this season.
Yeah, the Columbus game is nowhere near as bad as it sounds.
Yeah, that looks like a bludgeon.
Yeah, that looks bad. That 5-2, that was one 200-foot empty netter and one
194.
Yeah, I was going to say not quite 200, but pretty far.
Yeah.
And before that, again, the 3 Columbus goals that they scored in normal play were 3 Flyer giveaways.
Here you go.
Yeah. And so again, the rest of that game, besides those 3 giveaways and the 1 or 2 others that they had, and then the empty netters. The rest of that game, the Flyers played pretty well. They limited chances. They got a good amount of scoring chances of their own. They did a lot of the same things that they did well against St. Louis and against Ottawa last Saturday. Yeah. So that continued in the Columbus game. So basically, what you're looking for out of this team is a 4th straight game of improved play. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to improve game to game.
For sustainability purposes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because what they did in the first 3 weeks of the season is not sustainable at all.
They get away with it.
You can't continue to give up 80 shot attempts a game and lean on your goaltender. They didn't have to do that in either of those 2 wins. And again, the other X factor in the Columbus game was Jonas Korpisalo had a season game. He had good. He may not play as well the rest of the year as he did in that game. So usually you can overcome one or the other, but you can't do both. So that's kind of where the Columbus game went. So again, trying to do a lot of the same things they did in Columbus, minus the puck carelessness, and trying to keep that momentum going in the right direction.
And, that's the interesting thing. I had gotten this DM from a guy on Twitter, David, so I used it in Flyers Daily, saying, is this the real Flyers team, the one in that Columbus game that had the giveaways? And look, this is another teachable moment to protect the puck and not put the puck in peril, because it was incredibly consequential mistakes that prevented the Flyers from winning that game, where they had a territorial advantage, a possession advantage, shots advantage. So what they learn from that will be the determining factor of what they are going forward. You're going to have games like that in an 82-game season. I did not get my wish today, though. My wish, I wanted Felix Sandstrom to get this game today. I think this is a big game for the home crowd with Claude Giroux being here and everything. But and maybe I do get my wish in some way, because maybe Hart goes back-to-back this weekend. But I wanted to see Hart Ottinger tomorrow. I know Ottinger's banged up too, but Carter will get the start today. I ran into him downstairs on my way up and saw him going through his pregame ritual, which is quite extensive, and just said, "Are you going today?" And he said, "Yes, I'm going today."
Nice. So essentially the rest of the lines as well. The other thing too that you mentioned briefly was something that Brad Shaw actually said after the game on Saturday, or not Saturday, today's Saturday, Thursday, after the game Thursday, when he was pitch hitting for John Tortorella in the post-game press conference, that, it's even that game in Columbus was part of the learning process, and these guys learning when you can try to make moves against certain players and what moves you can make against the good players.
Yeah.
The three goals that we're talking about were not just giveaways. They were giveaways to Columbus's top line. And you can't give away pucks to the other team's top line. Doesn't matter what team you are. Except maybe what's left in a place like a place like Detroit or something like that. I mean, even those guys. Every NHL team is going to have three forwards that are really good, and if you hand them the puck, I mean, that's going to be
bad.
It's going to be bad, no matter who you're playing. So, I don't know if most of our listeners saw the aftermath of that game, but Zach Werenski is out for the season now. He was injured in that first period. Separated shoulder torn labrum. He's out for the year. Another one of their defensemen at some point broke his ankle.
And played the rest of the period.
One of those rookies broke his ankle and played the rest of the game because they only had 4 left. Jake's got. I don't know if they officially said it's a concussion or just speculative, but he's on IR. They are going through a similar year to what the Flyers had last year at this point. So Flyers get them again on the other side of this weekend set. They're going to be back in Columbus, so hopefully they'll be able to play a little bit cleaner and take advantage of that.
Yeah, it was Nick Blankenberg broke his ankle midway through the third period, played multiple shifts and finished the game despite that. Werenski went out.
I love when hockey players do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. So, that was an insanely bad night.
Because I remember seeing that, and then we were talking about it in the intermission. It's like they only have 4D left.
Then they had 3.
Some of these guys are haven't played very much, and he was one of the ones I looked up. And I'm like, well, when did he break his ankle? Because we were talking about him in the second intermission. Yeah, it was in the third period. He kept going.
What, was it Olivier, the guy that fought Delarier?
Mm-hmm.
He went back and played a couple shifts on D in the third period.
Yeah. I mean, that's next man up mentality right there, isn't it?
Yeah. I talked to Jody Shelley on Friday. He was on Stick to Hockey Live. And, of course, he just does the games for Columbus. And something that we talked about, that was a really desperate Columbus team and a desperate performance. So you got all they had to handle. And that we'll see Columbus again this week, but not before. We see the Sens and Claude Giroux today, the Dallas Stars tomorrow. As the Flyers go, we'll hold off on our on giving out the full lines for this game until we join our radio audience on 93.3 WMMR. 93.3 WMMR. Coming up in a couple of minutes. I was going to my rock radio announcer voice.
Bella?
Yeah, the ADB. Yeah. So we'll do that in just a moment, but it is the Flyers and the Sens today. Just busy hockey time right now. Let's talk about TK real quick because we're now 13 games into the season. It's not a tiny sample size. We're getting to that almost to the quarter pole. This guy's got over a point per game. How about in 13 games, 5 goals, 10 assists, 15 points. But I think one of the most impressive numbers here, Bri, is only 1 goal on the power play, but 5 assists on the power play. Okay. But the most impressive number to me actually is time on ice per game, 19 minutes and 50 seconds. He's never carried that much ice.
No, he never has. And that's largely because he never was on the penalty kill before.
Yeah.
I remember John Tortorella talking about it, and they were saying, okay, we want you to do this and this. Like the conversation with him, assuming that he had killed penalties before, and at some point in the conversation, he says, "Yeah, I've never killed in the NHL." And he was like,
"What? Yeah,
he'd never been used on the penalty kill." So yeah, I mean that's that kind of extra responsibility, and it's not as sharp as when the Flyers moved Sean Couturier from a third line center to a first line center, and he had a 70-point season. But it's that kind of thing that a new coaching staff comes in. They take guys that have been here for a while and have been pigeonholed into certain roles, and they use them differently, and they kind of blossom at it. And that's what you've seen from Konechny, I think, so far this season.
Well, the thing is, too, is like you look at the skill set that he has. He's always had a good stick. He can skate, and he's a guy that plays with an incredible amount of sometimes seemingly endless energy. He's perfect for a PK.
Yeah, absolutely.
TK is perfect for a PK.
And,
why didn't I think of that before? Damn it. I'm going to get a shirt made up that says TK on the PK.
And you mix in, too, some of the things that we have seen from him, and a lot of what I'm thinking about are games where he was mic'd up. Like, remember the outdoor game to Link?
Yeah.
He was mic'd up. And all he does is just run his yap for 60 minutes.
Giving it to Malkin about the cuffs.
Yeah. And just out there just being a thorn. He was doing it to Claude last week, remember?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was
doing it today.
Yeah, and he'll be doing it today. He just that is part of his game is using his mouth to get guys off their game, basically. And if you're out there doing it during even strength, you can darn well go out there and do it on the penalty kill. So, just more of that. And, again, we've talked harped on this before about, the shadow of Claude Giroux not being here anymore, allowing guys to step in and take a bigger role as leaders on and off the ice, and a bigger role on the ice in terms of what they play. And, I think Konechny and Lawton are the two guys that we've seen that from the most.
Yeah.
So that's another factor into what he's bringing to the table this year.
Agreed. We're going to join our radio audience here in just a moment. Merely seconds away, and we're going to deliver the starting lineups, or the line combinations, I should say.
It's fascinating how long 20 seconds is on the radio.
Yeah.
20 seconds isn't a very long time in any other walk of life but broadcasting.
Yeah, just turn off all the sound on a radio.
Except maybe medical. I don't know. Maybe it's a long time.
Yeah.
But it's a while.
Yep. All right. And welcome inside the East Food Hall. It is Flyers Game Day. Brian Smith, Jason Myrtetus, presented by Betway, as the Flyers get set to welcome Claude Giroux, his first return to Philadelphia as a member of the opposition and the Ottawa Senators. The Flyers are looking for a win to avenge that loss they had on Thursday against the Columbus Blue Jackets, and the Sens are looking for a win to stop the bleeding of a 7-game losing skid. Having those pronounced losing skids at the beginning of a season, Bri, they can make the math really difficult really quick.
And you're talking about an Ottawa team that supposedly was greatly improved from last year, not just with the signing of Claude Giroux, but a couple other things that they had going as well. DeBrincat brought in from Chicago. They add, they've got the Brady Tkachuk there, obviously, and the folks that have been part of this roster for a while, and Tim Stützle and some of these other guys. They're getting contributions. I mean, through 13 games, they've got 5 guys in the multi-point numbers, but it has not translated to wins for this team. And the goaltending, you got to wonder if that's need of an upgrade for this team to go anywhere. But right now, it's just a matter of a 7-game losing streak. They want to put a stop to it, and the Flyers need to come out and do what they did to the St. Louis Blues and take advantage of that scenario and grab a couple of points here.
They thought they were getting an upgrade in goaltending. Now, Talbot, I think, was dealing with some injuries in the beginning of the year. Cam Talbot, he forced his way out in Minnesota because of the addition of Marc-Andre Fleury. He did not want tandem duties, so he ends up in Ottawa. The Flyers lines in this game, top line. How about Kevin Hayes centering Travis Konechny and Joel Farabee? It was Tippett for a couple of games. Now it's Farabee once again, and I'm sure John Tortorella looking to get Beezer going. Scott Lawton centering Owen Tippett and Wade Allison. It's like, God, that's like twins on the wings. Yeah, right?
It's all confused the defense. Who is it?
Yeah, it's the Sedins. Noah Cates centering Lucas Sedlak and Zach McEwen on the third line. Then Morgan Frost centering Nick Delarier and Tanner Lazinski. So no big shots in the forward.
And let's also, I think Tippett on left wing, that's a change for him. That's something he's trying to get used to.
Off wing.
Yeah, and he knows that one goal the other night, he knows that it was a play that he forced, and that he's got to be more patient there. And it all rolls back into what the coaches have been saying, that these guys are learning, and this is a learning process, and they're going to build on that. He knows that he did that, and he's not going to do it again. And so that's part of this whole process. So that loss in Columbus, it's just one battle in a bigger war, if you will. He will use that to improve himself on that off wing.
Provorov and D'Angelo are your top pair. Sanheim and Braun once again on your second pair. and Nick Seeler playing alongside Rasmus Ristolainen on the third pair. We'll see if Risto has some time with Sanheim in this game. As I mentioned before, Carter Hart gets the start, and he will go against a guy that he knows pretty well. A guy actually was here in Philadelphia for a very brief period of time, but has worked out with Carter in the summers back home, and it is Cam Talbot. So Hart versus Talbot. Giroux going to play on the top line for Ottawa. It's Stützle in the middle, Tkachuk, and Giroux. That'll be the top line there. And another former Flyer, Derek Brassard. We forgot Brassard. Brass is playing for this Ottawa team as well with DeBrincat and Matheson.
Yes, and that was a bit of a late. That was a training camp signing, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was pretty late in the game.
Been a PTO.
Yeah. So he's been added as a veteran presence, trying to kind of settle things down with this team, and it hasn't led to a ton for them, obviously. But I think anytime you can add a guy like that, it's going to help your locker room.
I thought Brass played good last year. He just couldn't stay healthy.
Yeah, exactly. It was just caught up in what a lot of other Flyers were caught up in the injuries and stuff like that. But he was definitely a asset in the locker room. He fit in well with the group that the Flyers had that would have had a lot better season, I'm convinced, if everybody hadn't been hurt.
Yeah, no doubt. You're seeing a lot. Look out here. I see right in front of me this young woman having looks like maybe some crab fries and a cocktail. Giroux jersey. Guy over there got a nice big beer in his hand.
Well,
number 28 Claude Giroux jersey.
There
were a lot of those. Here's another guy over here. As he's facing us, I see the 28 on the arm sleeve.
They were on sale. So.
Oh, is the glowing amount to that?
No. I'm talking about over the summer.
Oh.
You walk into Dick's and they're all 50% off. Obviously,
they're up by the register.
It's just the nature of sports, right? You have all these jerseys, but obviously a lot of these were accumulated over the 1,000 game career that he played here, and
900
we are about to see him on Wells Fargo Center ice in another jersey for the first time. It's going to be a very strange thing to see. I'm not sure that I'll get used to it in this game. It may have to be the next time he comes, but it will be a very, very different look. And he's no doubt going to get, I think, a pretty good ovation here. There's going to be a pregame tribute to him, pregame acknowledgement. That's going to be a pretty loud moment.
Yeah, it'll be a very big moment here as the Flyers take on the Sens. But really, the task at hand is the 2 points and not even letting the one loss turn into two. That's the most paramount element of what's going to happen here today. And we'll see if the Flyers can do that against a team that's struggling. I mean, eventually, teams that struggle, Brian, they got to get a win. You just don't want to be the team that they do it against.
Right, exactly.
Kind of like Columbus.
Yeah, and these games are sometimes dangerous games because it's kind of the wounded animal scenario. And you don't want yourself to fall into the trap of thinking, these guys are having not having a great time. There might be a little bit of a walk in the park. Right now, I don't think the Flyers are in a mental spot where they would think that. So, sometimes you see this against teams that are leading the division or something like that. You come in and win 4 or 5 or something like that against the teams on a big losing streak. You might have a little bit of a letdown, but I don't think that they're in the spot where they'll do that today.
Yeah, and we saw a similar situation happen this past Tuesday when the St. Louis Blues, who were really bleeding out badly, came in here. And the Flyers just never gave them any life in the game. They tried to create life by a couple of fights, but Braden Shen got roughed up pretty good. And, you look at that, and the Flyers just never gave them any breathing space. So that's maybe the key to once again get a win here over Ottawa today in the return of Claude Giroux. Stay tuned. Tim Saunders, Steve Coates, they're on hand. And they've got the countdown, the face-off between the Flyers and the Sens. And all the first period action from here at Wells Fargo Center. A little tribute to El Capitan going to start us off tonight as well. Everybody, stay tuned. Philadelphia Flyers hockey is coming up next. The pregame show brought to you by Betway on the Flyers Broadcast Network.